We met in late September 2002. I was sitting in a small booth in a restaurant that I worked at, and I watched him walk in with a coworker of mine, a cook at the restaurant. And he introduced me to him as Thomas, his stepson. We exchanged hellos, and he smiled a big-ass Kool-Aid smile, and I remember how it made me feel in my spirit. He had a beautiful, rich brown complexion, deep-set brown eyes, a low haircut. He was about my height, kind of thin, 130 pounds, handsome. He had some tattoos that looked like an amateur had done them, but yeah, they're all right. And I just remember thinking to myself, okay, he's cute, smile was cool, I'm with it. So I noted the exchange, went home that day. The next day, I was surprised to see him in the kitchen with an apron on. I'm like, oh, he must have been coming for an interview. So I was kind of excited to know that I would see him again. We flirted all day that day and laughed and exchanged numbers by the end of the day. And he wasted no time calling me. He called me that night. I was like, yes. The conversations were like fairy tales. He told me all the right things, said all the right things. I was in love quick. I was like, okay, all right. And he was sweet and kind to me, and he was sweet and kind to my son. He really rocked my world, and it was no time before we were falling in love and living with each other. The love bombing that I learned what was kind of clouded my ability to see the red flags, which led to the first time. Darkness surrounds me. The only light that I see is the faint glow of the alarm clock across the room from me. I'm crouched in the corner of our cold, damp basement. He walks towards me with this unadulterated rage in his eyes, a rage that I'd never seen before. I could tell he was ready for another round. As he moves closer, I notice that he's still holding the long black leather belt that's struck me already at least 10 times. He smirks with this devilish grin, bares his teeth, and raises the belt. The fear has now entered my throat. I try to take a deep breath, but I can't. I find myself unable to breathe. I'm gasping for air, gasping for life. I feel absolutely helpless. My breathing is labored, and I know I'm about to get hit again. I whimper. I apologize, and I beg him to stop. He says nothing, no words. The belt comes down, and whap, my chest is on fire. I scream out in pain, and he hits me again, telling me to shut up. I try to swallow my cries and my tears, but I can't, it's impossible. He's already hit me with the belt more times than I can count. I plead with him to stop. I don't want to get hit anymore. He forcefully strips me my clothing, and before you know it, I'm standing before him in my purest form. He traces the welt marks on my body with his fingers, and he stares and smiles as if he's admiring a masterpiece he created. I cry. I break eye contact with him for a moment and glance over at the love seat that my son Justice is sleeping on. To my sad surprise, he's awake and he's watching. He reaches for me and I can't get to him. I'm feeling overwhelmed with guilt and my legs get weak, and I just keep replaying the scenario in my head. He beat me out of jealousy of my son. All I wanted to do was cuddle him, and he just didn't care. He grabs my face in his hands and yanks me from looking at Justice, and I'm softly screaming and begging him, Justice is watching, please don't do this. He looks at him, looks back at me without saying a word. The belt goes up and comes down, and he continues to beat me relentlessly. Justice is crying for me, and I can't comfort him. It's as if Justice's cries are fueling his anger. I'm frozen in the corner, forcing to accept every single blow. My bare skin is on fire. I just look over at Justice and I tell him, just go to sleep, Justice, I'm okay. And I lie and just keep saying, I'm okay, I'm okay. And eventually he flips over and just begins to cry uncontrollably. My heart aches. All I want to do is shelter and protect him, but I can't, he won't let me. It's been 30 minutes since the beating started. I've silently prayed for an end, but my prayers weren't immediately answered. The beating continues, and I continue to pray silently with no solace. Eventually, I start to pray aloud, and he finally stops. And I whisper, thank you. He walks halfway up the stairs, turns around and warns me not to move. I don't. I run my fingers over my swollen, battered body. There are too many welts to count. And I weep. He summons me to the bathroom and he forces me in a tub full of scalding hot water. The burning from the repeated strikes, as if that burning from the repeated strikes is not enough, the hot water magnifies and pronounces the pain. It is official, I am in hell. "20 minutes later, he finally lets me out of the bathtub. And when I stand up, I look in the mirror and I do not recognize myself. My freckles are hidden by the redness and the swelling that was left behind, and any joy that I felt has been beaten out of me. He escorts me to the basement. He climbs in the bed and snuggles under the covers, tells me I can't get dressed, and I look at him confused. Where am I supposed to sleep? And he says, right there, on the floor. I just shake my head in disbelief, like what? So I lay on the floor naked, scared, and thinking about my next move. He quickly falls into a deep sleep. A few minutes later, I carefully pick myself up off the floor and tiptoe to Justice to see that he's finally asleep. I cry as I hug and kiss him, and I tell his small sleeping body that I'm so sorry. I promise to protect you. I whisper I love him in his ear. A tear falls from my face onto his cheek, and I don't wipe it off. I take a moment, I gather myself, and I walk to the end of the bed that Thomas is sleeping on, and I whisper, Happy fucking New Year to me. I thought New Year's Eve was supposed to be a time for fun, a celebration, a time to party, new year, new you. Yeah, it was everything but that. I softly sit on the bed and I debate my next move. I contemplate going upstairs and getting a knife. I'm so pissed that he did this to me, I could kill him. I take a few steps towards the stairs and he begins to stir, and I freeze. His body shifts, but he doesn't wake up. And then in that moment, I glance at Justice and I see him sleeping, and I'm reminded that I'm a mom. And he needs me. If I kill him, I'm gonna go to jail. So I retreat, I put on a shirt and panties, and I lay back on the floor and I toss and turn in pain until I finally fall asleep. I jump up from the floor, I rush the alarm clock to silence it, and the noise ceases. It's 8 a.m. I begin to rub my eyes in an attempt to wake up, and I'm quickly reminded of what happened the night before. My body aches to a level that cannot be measured. I'm struggling to believe that the man I love beat me with a belt for nearly an hour the night before. And I continue to replay the event in my mind, and I ask myself, what did I do wrong? What did I do to deserve that? The answer is nothing. I didn't do anything. I just wanted to lie with my son. I couldn't even lay with my son. None of it makes sense, and I ask myself a million questions with no answers. I try real hard to be quiet that morning. Justice and I are getting dressed, and I'm moving in a hurry, trying not to wake him. But he woke and he startled me. I'm sorry, I was trying not to wake you. And he stares at me, and I just stand frozen, unable to say a word. I don't know what to say, and surely he doesn't know what to say. What could he say? The only word that should come out of his mouth is, I'm sorry, and even that's not enough. I grab my purse and Justice's diaper bag, and I head for the stairs. And of course, he follows me up the stairs, and he says, I'm sorry, you just made me so mad. I was sick, and I wasn't feeling good. I needed you. His half-assed attempts to justify his behavior and apologize made me sick. I had no interest in listening to him. How can someone tell you they love you and then hurt you like that? I simply can't grasp the logic. The look on his face every time he hit me replays in my mind. That beautiful smile that I met in the beginning was now clouded with nothing but evil behind his eyes. The way he bared his teeth and the way he looked at me as if I was some target of his. I shudder. The fear invades my entire person. I'm beyond scared. I'm hurt. I'm angry. And fuck, I'm still in love with this person. The mix of emotions has me feeling physically ill. But I love him. I walk out the door towards my car without looking back. His cries for me to stop go unanswered, and they fade as the car door closes.